You're listening to episode 225 of the Master Your Mind, Business, and Life podcast. I love the way that this week's guest ties nature into business and life. Julie Wolk is a business coach who helps hardworking women, coaches, consultants, and healers transform a business that drains them into a business that sustains them. In fact, she's a firm believer that if we step off of the obsessive productivity hamster wheel and tune into nature's rhythms, we can grow more sustainable lives, businesses, and even a better world. She helps her clients slow down, get super aligned, and create better boundaries and solid systems so that they can find more time, energy, and money in their business. As a lifelong nature freak, she has 20 years experience turning visions into reality, plus a chronic illness, a toddler, and a six-figure business despite the pandemic. So she's a total expert in streamlining, strategizing, and finding the simplest pathway forward. Before I introduce you to Julie, it's been a while since I have shared a review of the week, and I just love this one from Elle Perkins on Apple Podcasts. It reads, "Lauren is interesting, relatable, and I always learn something. I love listening to this podcast when I walk. It's my favorite way to relax." Elle, seriously, your review made my entire day when I read it. Thank you so much for taking the time to rate and review the podcast. And of course, thank you for tuning in and turning up. If you'd like to have your review featured, share your 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or similar. And of course, while you're listening today, be sure to screenshot to share that you're listening, throw that on Instagram stories, tag me in it at MindBizLife, and let's start a conversation. I also love when you share the episode with a friend, as your shares have helped get this podcast in the homes, cars, and earbuds of people from over 150 countries around the world. So now that we've covered that, it's time to meet this week's guest. You know what to do. Tune in, turn it up, let's go.
You're listening to Master Your Mind, Business and Life. Conversations with everyday world shifters, truth seekers, and rule breakers. Here's your host, Lauren Smith.
Hi, Julie. Welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you joining me today.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here, Lauren.
When I read your bio and I read that you're a lifelong nature freak, you're a mama, you have a chronic illness, and you maintained a six-figure business despite the pandemic. I mean, whoo, you are doing the dang thing. So tell me, was being an entrepreneur always part of your plan? Is this how, 13-year-old Julie saw your life working out?
No, 13-year-old Julie, I don't know. I think she wanted to be a fashion designer or something like that. But I mean, as I look back, I think I've always been, I'm entrepreneurial in spirit. I'm a starter. I'm a gatherer. I've always liked planning things and making events happen and bringing people together. I do a lot of group programs and retreats. So I've always had this kind of initiator energy, and I'm a Capricorn. And so I think it's part of my personality, but no, it wasn't always. I don't even think I really understood about entrepreneurship until kind of later in life. The thread is really more around the nature piece, and knowing like all of the work that I've done has some connection back to the earth. It started out as environmental advocacy, and then after about 10 years of that was when I kind of entered into entrepreneurship. Started a nonprofit organization now about almost 15 years ago, where our whole goal was to help people reconnect to the earth. And so that was the kind of first step in my entrepreneurial journey. And then I realized, oh yeah, this is super fun to get to create my own thing around what I'm passionate about. And, I've never really looked back since then.
Oh man. Okay. There's a lot I want to pick apart. First, heck yeah to Capricorn energy. I'm a Capricorn as well. But awesome. I also love that you're so connected to the earth, because Capricorn's an earth sign. So it kind of just like really balances that out. And I love that you were able to just kind of shift and see that, okay, there's a lot more to this than maybe the confined box that I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And it's evolved. I mean, it's always played into my work in different ways. And so, in my business now, it's, I bring people out into nature as part of the process of slowing down and reconnecting with themselves in order to create a business that's more aligned and more focused and streamlined and strategic.
Well, I'm curious to know what else has nature kind of taught you about growing a business? So if you take them out to kind of slow down, what other lessons can we take away from nature?
So many. Well, the primary, primary one of the primary lessons is that so we live in this society that is telling us to go at an alarming rate and produce an insane amount and value us based on, how much we produce, how fast we go, how quickly we get it done. This is what's valued in our patriarchal, corporate, white supremacist society. Frankly, like this is what has been ingrained for centuries. And so it's definitely it's an illness in our society, and it's a totally unnatural way of living, right? Like we're nature beings, we are animals, right? And so for us to be going at this a rate and to be in constant production mode is completely unnatural. It's unhealthy for us. It's unhealthy for the planet. And so the primary, I mean, there's so many lessons, but the primary one, it feels like the slowing down and honoring both the ebb and the flow of the natural cycle. So we obviously, like, running a business, it's not like you got to work at it, right? I mean, it takes work to start and run a business. I'm never going to tell you it's not any work to do that. But we have to balance the ebb and the flow. Like in nature, for every summer there's a winter, for every day there's a night, and we're all like day in this culture, and we need to have night too. We need to have that resting time so that it can fuel the times when we do need to work hard. So, I mean, to me, that's like, there's so many lessons. That's a big one that I'll start off with, though.
Oh, I think that's a really important one, because that is, I mean, business aside, just humans in general, right? Like we are in that mode a lot. And where do you think it comes from that, like, we just don't give ourselves the permission to slow down? Is that all society, or do we also create these stories in our head based off of what we've been told in society that, like, we're just not allowed to?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know where the two meet, right? But our culture is so much embedded in why we believe certain things. There's some things that are, ancestral, lineage based beliefs, but the reason that we continue to keep moving and add more and do more and offer more and overgive in our businesses and whatever it ends up looking like, overworking, is often because there's a worthiness thing at the core of it. It's like, I'm not worth anything as a human unless I'm producing and giving and overdoing. And ultimately, I mean, that is pushed on us by society, that, more is better. But it ends up being this internal feeling of like not enoughness, right? Or of I'm not worthy. So I've got to, pack more into my program, or I've got to, give more. And that's where the kind of there is a lot of internal work to do around that, like claiming our own enoughness. Yeah.
That is a huge layer in itself. And I never thought of it in that way, of like really digging deep and realizing like it's all attached to your worth. Like, that's huge.
It is pretty huge. Yeah. I was just talking to a therapist friend about that last night, and we were talking about this very thing. And she was saying, ultimately, she said, all of our main core wounds, she said, come down to something around worthiness. But if we tap into, like, if you're someone who works really hard and you tend to run that pattern of like, I just got to keep going and plowing through, and not resting even when you're feeling tired, where is that coming from? Like, where is that energy coming from? What's that underlying fear or anxiety that's like causing you to keep pushing? What are we afraid of? Are we afraid of not being, like, our clients not liking us or thinking we're effective enough because we haven't put enough? I keep using that example of like putting too much in the program because it's so classic.
Yeah.
But we have to like just kind of turn inward and feel into what is our personal reason for why we're going so hard, and to start to unhook from that.
I think like this, as you know, like it gets us to that burnout stage, right? Like we then are like piling so much on and we don't know how to stop almost until like the universe stops it for us. What do you think business owners kind of skip over, but they really need in order to prevent the burnouts before we can even get to burnout stage?
It requires a level of intention, first of all, like again, slowing down for long enough to look at what are my goals? What do I want? What do I want my life to look like, first of all? And then how do I design a business around that? And how do I not take on too much, essentially? How do I keep myself from trying to, create more and more offers and try the newest, latest, sexiest marketing strategy because it came across your Facebook feed as like a $27 offer or whatever. How do I like sort of just be more intentional and strategic about how we spend our time? And a lot of that, I teach a lot about business models and, just like what are the programs, what are the offers in your business that add up to the amount of money that you make, essentially. And there's efficient ways to do that, and there's really inefficient ways to do that. And like the same person can earn $100,000 a year running like one program that's, in depth and transformational and higher fee, or you can run like 3 or 4 or 5 programs and run around and be doing a lot more marketing and a lot more work and a lot more delivery. So it's really about, figuring out where your energy's at and what you want to create, and then designing something that's going to, be more efficient than the kind of trying to do all the things mode that a lot of us are in.
I think when we move towards entrepreneurship, we're automatically like, yeah, I get to finally live the life I want to live, but we forget to design the life that we want to live while stepping into it. Because you're right.
Totally.
You get like so bogged down with like, domain names and setting up LLCs and right. Like all of what you have to do, that it gets really easy then to be spending over 40 hours a week in your business, but not really getting anywhere.
I absolutely, you're so right. And I want to okay, first of all, I'm not perfect at this. Full disclosure, right? Like we're, this is always a work, especially for people who are kind of born, like hardworking Capricorns. So, there's for me, there's this iterative process of really learning how to build my business and change my business so it actually fits around my life. And it's like I have to do it over and over again. I'm actually in a new phase of that right now. I have a 2.5-year-old, and she's going to go to preschool in the fall, at least for a couple of days. And it feels like this moment where I just, I want to spend as much time as possible with this little human as I can right now. And so I'm shifting my business around to allow for that. And I'm drawing even more strict boundaries around like, when am I going to work and not work? Because she's my priority right now. Like she's the most important thing. And I need to align my business around the time that I want to spend with my kid. Instead of like squeezing her into the cracks at the end of the day when I'm tired, so that's not going to work. And so I have to go back and redesign. But I think you nailed it. Like we design it from the start, even if you're in like the very beginning of designing your business, like put the hours in that you want to work on the days you want to work and do that, don't let it take over, and practice what it's like to just stop when you said you were going to stop,
Oh gosh. And that's so hard from home too, because it's not like we have an office closing down on us being like, okay, guys, time to leave, clock out now. Like you can find yourself in hustle mode as long as your eyeballs can stand looking at the computer.
It's true. It's true.
I love what you said about your daughter. And as a mom who had, my girls are a little bit older. I have an 11 and a 7-year-old. I can quickly take myself back to your shoes and that like having a 2-year-old and then knowing that, preschool or daycare is coming to give yourself a break. It's fascinating too, because right now you're shifting and a few years from now, you're going to shift again, because then when she's going to school, like an all day thing, then that completely changes what happens for you. Your schedule changes again. And then
Mm-hmm.
you have summers off and you have Christmas breaks. And I realized for me, like my summers are non-negotiable at this
Uh-huh.
point.
Uh-huh.
I will hustle my butt off, January through May to prepare myself like for summer. Like I almost feel like a bear
Uh-huh.
preparing myself for winter, like
Uh-huh.
in the hibernation mode, but that's when my girls are home and I want to be with, I
Yeah.
want to be present. So,
Yeah.
but being able, that wasn't always the case,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely summer and hey, you guys just sit on your electronics. I got to work. And I realized how crummy that was. So you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Like taking that step back and then just owning the power to shift it because you do have the power. You're your own
Yes.
boss.
Exactly. That's why we're doing this. And it's not like there's hard things about being an entrepreneur, but I keep coming back to it because I'm like, I get to choose. I get to choose when I work and when I play with my daughter and when I have clients and when I don't. And it's so powerful. And people fall into the trap of like thinking they have to work 9 to 5 just because that's when their job was, but we really have the ultimate freedom to design it. Like you're saying, you've designed your business to take the summers off essentially, or probably have a really light workload. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we got to do. And as our lives change, I mean, that's why we have to not just like slow down once a year at, holiday time, but actually on a regular basis, step back and say, okay, what's shifted in my life? What do I need to change as far as my schedule goes, or my, how my priorities shifted and how does that reflect in my business? What changes do I need to make?
100%. And I'm sure someone's listening is like, well, Lauren, how do you really take off, like the entire summer? Well, you nailed it. It's not like I'm taking off the entire summer. I definitely lighten my workload. I don't do podcast conversations in the summertime. And I get up early. I mean, my kids sleep in. They're at that age, that glorious age of sleeping in.
Oh my God, I cannot wait for that.
Oh, it's a good one. I'm not even going to downplay it. It's a good one. But I'm an early riser. So therefore I can get up early, get a couple hours of work done, where that's, scheduling posts, doing social media, that type of stuff. And then by the time they're up, mom's present, so it's not like you're completely out of it. You've just structured your day a little bit differently and set new boundaries for that time period. But I think a lot of people fall into the trap of always feeling busy, but not really being productive. So what do you think the real key to productivity is?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I have two answers. One, I think the real key to productivity is being aligned, like doing the work you're here to do. Because when we are aligned with what our purpose, then we can feel the energy like flowing through us and the work is easier, right? Like, I mean, who here has felt, really on purpose and like, it's just effortless. You get a lot done and you're focused on what is, what you want to be focused on. So things just happen. It's not like you can't work endlessly like that, right? But it provides a lot more like natural energy, because if you're, I mean, on the flip side, if you're misaligned, if you're doing work that you don't love, then how does that feel, right? Like it's crappy, it's draining. Misalignment is a total energy drain and alignment is a natural energy source.
Ooh, that's a truth bomb right there. Mic drop. All right. Conversation done. Just end it on a good one. No, but I think you're completely right, because if you've ever been in a job where you not even like, sometimes you'll hate the job, but you love your coworkers. And then you'll just stay there because of that. Like, oh, but I love the people I work with. Yeah, but you hate your job. It's kind of the same thing in entrepreneurship. Like if you no longer are in love with what you're doing, you then also have the power to pivot into a completely new business.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is that?
It's really cool. It's really cool. I've made a lot of shifts and changes, especially as like conscious, evolving humans, right? As we grow and change and evolve, then our work is going to naturally change. And we have to pay attention to that and retune back in to the growth that's happening internally, so that again, it can reflect into our business and remain aligned or get realigned when it's starting to feel off. And then like the other piece of productivity is like is that once you're clear and you're aligned, what's the strategy and what are your goals, right? Like having an actual plan. I'm not saying that just because we have a plan means we're going to hit every goal and everything's going to go perfectly. Like that's not reality, but we plan so that we have a North Star that we're headed toward. And we know that, if something comes up along the way, we can make a conscious decision to either, go in a different direction, or we can look and say, you know what, that's actually kind of off from what I said my goal was. And I'm going to say no to that right now and like stick to keep my eye on the prize. So it's like alignment, and then creating again, a business strategy, a business model and goals that will support your alignment. It will support what you want for your life.
How often do you think we need to revisit that strategy for our business?
I think it depends how things are going. I mean, when things get crunchy and it's not feeling good, then it's like a clear, obvious time to take a step back. And what people tend to do is just work harder because it's not working, and maybe the money's not coming in as quickly, so you're kind of working harder to make it work, and it kind of gets worse. And it feels really edgy to take the break because you're like, oh, I gotta go and earn money. But those are the moments when you need to take the step back to find the wisdom you're not going to find when you're like just sitting in front of your computer screen trying to figure something out. The wisdom comes when you take that walk outside and you're like, oh, right, the river's flowing. I just got to flow with it, or whatever it is, right? Whatever the lesson is that nature is going to give you in that moment, or, however you're going to zone out and take yourself away from figuring it out mode. So, I mean, really anytime when things are feeling crunchy is a great time to do that. I generally like, I'm on a quarterly retreat system with my clients. So like people who join my programs, like every 3 months we have, 1 to 3 days of retreat time to recalibrate. And I mean, I think that's ideal. Part of the reason people sign up to work with me is to like carve that out and put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to do that on your own,
Right.
And
it's for business. Hey.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, and then, if you can't do it that frequently, sometimes it's just a morning. Like if you can take a morning every quarter for big picture, how are my goals going? How am I feeling? What am I loving about my business? What am I hating about my business? What do I need to change? Where do I need more support? Where do I need to change my schedule and close up some time leaks and some energy leaks? Just checking in with how things are feeling, and is it still feeling good and aligned? What changes do I need to make? You don't necessarily need a 3-day retreat to do that, but touching in regularly is great. And I mean, look, I reprioritize constantly. I have my like asana open with my to-do list, and I'm looking at how do I plan my day and what's most important on a very regular basis. So I'm doing it in a small way, almost every day.
Yeah. How do you continue to give yourself grace on those days, like when you're not hitting everything that you've set out to do?
I've just stopped beating myself up about that after so many years of it becoming the norm that I don't finish every single thing that I set out to do in a day. I just don't make myself wrong for it anymore. I think that I plan and I do the best I can to do the most important thing. And I have compassion for myself. And in particular, I have a small child, like I was saying, I have a chronic illness that, flares up sometimes. And then we're all dealing with this crazy ass pandemic. It's like we have to be, I mean, I think the most important quality of being a business owner is self-compassion. It's just like, it's not easy to do what we're doing.
Yeah. You're so right. And to just have that compassion towards self, because it's really easy. We have the compassion towards other people, like almost effortlessly. But when it comes back to self, like the struggle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know a lot of people listening are probably wondering how you just keep it all together and continue to achieve. So how do you balance work and your personal life? Or really, what does balance even mean?
How do I balance it? Well, again, this is like life's work for me. Right. And I I've gotten way better at it over time. But it's not perfect. It's like and part of it is just being okay with the days and the phases when I'm not as on it and when things are harder. And I've had a lot of that this last year, because of the pandemic and life right now, and not having like other extra childcare and all these things. And, we go, just like this seasons, our businesses go through phases too. So we're not always going to be in the productive mode. We're going to have winters in our businesses too. And we're going to have spring times when we're getting something new started. And so there's, first of all, it's just a recognition that balance is something that happens over a way longer period of time than one day. So, if we don't do the exercise every day, it's like, fine. If you're like, if you don't, that's where we have to be easier on ourselves. And, again, have the intentions and do the best that we can, but know that we're going to have some busy weeks, and maybe there's going to be a few really busy months. And that after that, take the time to slow down and take the week off or whatever you need to do to replenish yourself and nourish yourself. So for me, it's like, I'm just it's sort of more of a long game. I'm in a busy period right now, and I'm stepping way back in the spring to take more time with my daughter and like kind of how you're doing in the summer, right? It's just, I don't think about it as on like a daily basis as much as I do as on a, maybe monthly or over the course of a year.
Right. Yeah. I think that's so, well, one, it's special. I love that you're taking the time to do this with her, because so many times just in parenting, our kids can fall through the crack because we get so focused, especially as business owners. Oh, working from home like that. It's a balance, and it always like a give and pull. So I love that you're doing that. All right. But I have one more question. You had kind of brought up that when you're sitting behind your TV or your computer screen and like you're just hitting your head, like nothing's happening. You mentioned when you go outside, right? Like, have you found that with your clients, when they get away from behind their screen, maybe like they're stuck on an idea, don't know how to move forward, that by being outside, like it just opens it up for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh. Absolutely. I mean, for myself too, it's like that, that moment when it's just like getting so hard and it feels like a slog, even like 10 minutes, even a 10-minute walk outside can totally shift the energy. And I actually build in, to a lot of, if I'm having clients, go and do some kind of like homework around, clarifying their framework or their offer, and they're getting stuck on it, I build in these little kind of nature exercises into all the modules. So it's like, okay, so if you're feeling stuck, go and do this exercise outside, clear your head, do this like journaling exercise, and then come back to this process with a fresh mind and heart and the answers come more easily when you take those kind of breaks. Yeah, for sure.
Like there's like little mindful moments to just pause.
Yeah.
Pause. I love that. Julie, I know you have so much more to offer. Where can our audience go to connect with you further?
You can go to my website, juliewolkcoaching.com, and I have a fun little quiz there that helps people understand their entrepreneur type and how that relates actually to their time and energy and money leaks. So I talk a lot about boundary. We didn't get to the whole boundaries conversation, but about having good boundaries in your business. And so the quiz tells you, kind of where you might be leaking energy and time and money in your business. So that's one thing. And then I'm also on Instagram. So Julie C. Wolk on Instagram, and you can find me over there too.
Oh, that quiz sounds really fun. I like finding all those things out. I'll have to take it myself, and I'll be sure to link it in this week's episode notes so that our audience can find it quickly. But Julie, you are a ray of light. I love the work you're doing in the world and the way that you're showing up. Thank you so much for being a world shifter.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thanks so much for having me. It was really fun speaking with you.
I love how Julie honors herself and encourages others to do the same. I've linked Julie's website and social channels on this week's episode notes found on mindbizlife.com. And while you're busy connecting with Julie, be sure we're connected too. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at MindBizLife. I'll see you back here on Friday for an episode of Fuel Your Life Friday. But until then, remember, every level of life is an opportunity to grow. Be well, my friend.